far too long. I need like a much shorter song.
Are we not on yet?
40 seconds. No, we're totally on now.
Oh,
Totally
okay.
on.
They can hear us.
Yeah. Yeah, they could hear us the whole time. Not a big deal. But hello, everybody. Welcome to Gird, Your Loins. I'm Bret, Lynn. And with me, I have my friend, Dan Andros, who's been helping me this whole time spend money.
Yeah, help. I'm helping.
Yeah.
I'm sure Amy's thrilled.
Because these microphones are well worth the money. They sound like good, expensive microphones.
Yes, and they're not expensive.
No.
Not comparatively.
Not terribly expensive.
Yeah.
They're much more expensive than the free microphone I was using with Tyler, where nobody could hear him. But that's fine. So if you're just joining me for the first time, meaning you missed the very first time I recorded anything, the point and purpose of Gird Your Loins is to help men become more well-rounded, so that instead of becoming a specialized tool in somebody else's toolbox, you can use a varied amount of life experiences to become tools in your own toolbox. And hopefully we can do that by having some fun and interviewing people that I think are interesting and live within 15 miles of where I'm presently sitting.
Well, an amazing invention is called Skype, Brett, and you will be shocked to learn that you can actually do Skype on this whole
No
setup
kidding.
here. Yeah. So we'll get you. You're gonna you're gonna go global before you know
We'll
it.
branch out to that.
Yeah.
I mean, for all anybody knows, you sitting over there, you could be in an entirely different place in the country.
I could.
Even though this checkerboard pattern seems to be creating a theme over into the...
I found a room in a Thailand internet cafe.
Yeah.
And I'm just... I had the same background.
That
same
explains
background.
the wicker
Yes,
background.
exactly.
I got to make the room a little smaller. So, anyway, I wanted to talk about... Well, actually, I wanted to talk about you. So I wanted to interview you and just kind of go over some of your life experiences, because I think you've been kind of a journeyman in this whole, internet media stuff, radio things, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want me to start from the, I mean, just a quick background on my career. I kind of was always involved in media one way or another. That was what I went to school for. I had interest in radio broadcasting, and really sports broadcasting actually was what I wanted to do. A good friend of mine is Stu Bergier. Some of you may know from the Glenn Beck radio program, a childhood friend of mine, and we just were obsessed with sports announcing. So we would just be, I think I slept over.
Boom goes the dynamite.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I announced, but we knew maybe our careers would not go well when, to date myself here, we were announcing, we would set up, this was before you had any of these, modern technology that made it real easy to go on YouTube or whatever. Right. We would just record ourselves and set up these contraptions and with VCRs and all this crazy stuff. And but we announced the Game 7 of the NBA Finals. I think it was 94, 95. I'm forgetting the year now. But when the Knicks were playing the Rockets, and at the time we were kind of Knicks fans, and anyway. So we were. I mean, I'm a Celtics fan first and foremost. Always have been. But at that particular time, I was cheering for the Knicks in that Finals. Anyway, it was Game 7, and we're announcing it. And it just starts going bad for the Knicks. And we lose all objectivity at all. And we're just going, John Starks misses again. What is he doing? Why is he still shooting? And we're just going nuts. And it's us just yelling at the... Anyway, so that's long history of wanting to be in media. And ended up... And then Stu actually got a job working with Glenn Beck. And then that's how I got in. Through knowing Stu, I eventually got hired to work with Glenn and on his early radio program. So I was a radio producer for many years with Glenn, and then that morphed into TV and television production. And then now I'm into digital media, so with CBN News and faithwire.com, just writing the news, reporting the news from a Christian perspective. So yeah, there's a lot of stories in between there, but that's the overarching career path.
So you've done a fair bit of writing too.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you went to school for and stuff, other than the broadcasting stuff?
Well, I mean, I went generally for mass comm. Interestingly, I'm not, writing was something I kind of fell into. actually, because with Glenn, I was producing radio, and like that was kind of my first love, was always radio. And so we had a lot of fun, producing the radio shows and coming up with bits to do on radio. And like there was some writing involved with that. So, you'd write like comedy bits and things like that. And that was kind of actually my first foray into writing. I'd never really, Stu is a big writer. I mean, Stu and Glenn, first of all, are just brilliant. They're like way smarter than I could ever hope to be. And so they were showing me how to write stuff. I mean, Glenn is great on the air, but he's a great writer too.
Yeah.
He actually wrote stuff, I think, for Bob Hope one time.
Oh, really?
So he's so funny with his writing. So anyway, I learned they kind of, helped me learn how to write adequately. And they would always take things and punch it up and everything. So, so I'd done some writing for the radio. And then when Glenn went on to TV, when he first went on Fox News, they had a head writer, and he was a nice guy, but he was a terrible writer. I couldn't believe he was actually writing on national television. Maybe he just didn't care about writing for Glenn, and he didn't agree with him. I don't know what the deal was, but you read some of these scripts, and you're just like, what is happening here? What is this? And so long story short, he got moved to reassigned, and they needed a writer. And so I was like, well, I'll do it in the meantime. And they were like, okay, great. And so got a trial run, and that was that. So I wrote for Glenn for many years after that. So
talking trash about past employees.
I know. I realize that. Yeah. Honestly, I'm sure
the great thing is that nobody's going to see this.
Well, you never know. Nice guy, and he's probably a great writer. I'm just saying, for the things I saw that he wrote for Glenn, I don't think he was putting his full effort into it. Let's just say that.
Now, was that when Glenn was in Florida?
No, this was when Glenn had moved up to New York. He had been on CNN headline news for, I think we did that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then he switched to Fox.
I remember that was like a big surprise. It was like CNN was trying to still trick people into thinking that they were unbiased or something.
Yeah, well, Joel Cheatwood, who's just phenomenal. He was longtime executive at CNN and then at Fox News, but he was the one that sort of hired Glenn. And Joel's just a brilliant guy, and so he knows talent when he sees it. So and he's definitely not some liberal ideologue, that's trying to create liberal programming and CNN at a time was, even though there was a bias there, it wasn't like a mission to be, a progressive liberal.
Very different world.
Very different world. So
15 years ago.
Yeah, I know. Amazing how much can change in 15 years. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of when you guys moved into this area, right?
Yes, we moved. I'm trying to remember.
This area, meaning Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So when I first worked with Glenn, it was in Florida, and we were at 970 WFLA in Tampa. And then that show then when it got syndicated and got bigger, and then TV came along, he went up to the Philadelphia area, and so that's when we came back up. Then there was a stint in Texas a few years later, and then back up again. So
yeah.
But
it was a big surprise when you told me you were moving back here. I was like,
yeah,
Dan's gone for good. He's moved to Texas, never coming back.
I know. Well, then in pandemic land, you kind of think, well, maybe, we got Governor Kim Jong-Wolf here, and I thought maybe Texas. Why did I leave there? When you're looking at stadiums full of people now, and but we're happy to be back in Pennsylvania. So aside from Governor Kim Jong-Wolf, but other than that, all's good.
Ugh, somehow your camera cut out.
It probably knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
Just hit reset. If you right click the camera thing.
It said it's not online.
Maybe you just re-add it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Oh my.
Well, they can still hear me. I mean, I don't think it's any loss for the world that
capture device not supported.
Well, it was. I mean, obviously it was, because it was on at one point. I've broken the camera. This is why I went into radio, Bret.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, right. The guy's got a face for radio. Which one is that?
This one here? Want me to unplug it and plug it?
Yeah, I guess so. If that's the one that's plugged into there.
Let's see.
Nope, that was my camera.
Oh. And there you go. Yeah, that one. Are you back now? Should we start over?
No, we're not gonna start over. It's ridiculous.
Did yours come back?
Yeah, I'm back. Are you back?
Let's see what I want to hear now.
Bingo, you're back. We can handle this. It's not a big deal. We got this.
Handled it like pros.
Seat of our pants. Now everybody knows we're in the same room for sure. So, because I wanted to talk about family and stuff.
Yeah.
Some of my big question I was thinking about, like, when was the first time you knew that you wanted to have a family, that you wanted to start a family, or did you ever consider that when you were younger, or just kind of like you met Tara and you were just like, I'll do whatever she tells me to do?
Yeah. I think in the beginning it was sort of like, okay, we'll just whatever happens happens. I didn't, I'm very blessed, and I feel very blessed that God, brought Tara and I together, because we didn't really have faith in mind when we got together. Mm-hmm. That sort of came after we had gotten married.
For both of you.
Yeah. And not long after, but after. And so we were kind of both like, oh, that could have gone a different route, and that could have been not fun.
Right.
If one of us came to faith and the other one didn't, and had different ideas.
That could have got messy.
Yeah. And, and so, we weren't thinking of that at the time when we actually got married. So starters, I feel blessed on that front. So yeah, no, I was adult in the early years of my marriage, I'm still adult now, but, I was just kind of going along, doing my job and trying to move up and all this stuff. I really didn't give a lot of thought to any of that stuff, but right. I think in the back of my mind, I had two brothers growing up and, a lot of cousins and things like that. So I never thought the other way. I never thought like, oh, I don't want any kids or anything like that. Like I certainly wanted kids at some point,
like a foregone conclusion. Like,
yeah, like it
definitely
just
gonna happen.
Exactly. So I wasn't gung ho on the one side of like, oh, I'm gonna have 15 kids or no kids. So like I was just kind of like, yeah, it's gonna happen, and we'll have a family to be great, but didn't really give thoughts to the specifics. So
you guys got 4 kids, right?
Yeah, we have 4. Yeah.
Well,
and one in heaven. One in heaven as well. I think a lot of people they don't tend to talk about that, and add that in the equation, but we kind of think that's amazing. Like we're going to have another child that we get to meet in heaven.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have dealt with miscarriage and it's just not very public usually, and they don't talk about it a lot, maybe close friends know. But so yeah, 4 here and then 1 that we'll get to meet in heaven. So
that'll be awesome.
Don't know if it's a boy or girl, and I don't know. We'll find out. So
5 kids. So you're over. Yes. You're over the quota.
Yeah, over the quota for sure. Right. Yeah, the environmentalists are not fans.
No. Well, eventually the Chinese will come for us, and then we're only allowed to have what, 2, 1? How much are they allowed to have?
Gosh, I mean, these days, if you have any, you're harming the planet. Yeah. Right.
Well, I don't know.
Did you ever watch Mr. Show? Did you ever watch that show with Bob Odenkirk and David Cross? And there's one hilarious show. Crass, but wait,
David Cross, isn't that the guy? That's the guy from.
He's like a raging atheist, so I mean, not somebody you'd be like necessarily a fan of, but like short guy with the short black hair and the glasses, very sarcastic.
What was that show? It was.
I don't know. I mean, I know Mr. Show with Bob and David, but
he painted himself all blue.
I don't know. I'm blanking on that one, but anyway, they have a bit where they were. The CEO is just basically saying, we got to keep downsizing. That's the way to save it. And then he fires these people. Then next thing he knows, there's nobody left. And he's like, we've got to fire. And he's like, I'm the only one here. What have I done? I just feel like that's like the environmentalists right now. It's like, they're like, we've just got to get rid of all the people to save the planet. And there's going to be one, Al Gore is going to be left. And he's going to be like, we did it. There's no one here.
I was just talking to a friend about the idea of overpopulation and how ridiculous that is. Well, he's relatively conservative, but not up on like every topic, and kind of was convinced that we've got an overpopulation problem, so like we might have to do something about
that. Let's start calling the weak, like where have we heard this before?
Yeah. But it always seems to be people that live in cities that think that we're overpopulated.
Yeah.
Everybody else doesn't seem to see the problem.
Right. Take a gander out in Iowa or something. You might not be feeling so claustrophobic when you drive for like 22 hours and you don't see anyone or anything other than a few, dust balls floating by.
I don't know if that's the trend, but it seems like people that live in cities tend to have fewer kids. Like the more spread out you are.
You can't. How are you gonna have a big family in New York unless you're a bajillionaire?
Right.
I mean, you can't. I mean,
it's hard enough.
4 kids. I mean, in a little apartment for what we pay for a mortgage for a house out here.
Sleeping in the dresser drawers.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm trying to think of the equivalent of what I could get for what we pay on our mortgage, and it's probably no more than a 2-bedroom small apartment. It would be
Wow.
tiny. And, one little living room and a couple bedrooms, and then all your kids just jammed into one room.
Yeah. Living on top of each other.
Yeah.
That would be nuts. So what do you guys have? So you're the opposite of us. We have 3 girls and 1 boy. You have the 1 girl.
Yeah, our first was
3
a girl.
boys.
Caitlin, she's 16, and then 3 boys after that. Yeah.
Speaking of which, because Rebecca and Caitlin are both 16.
Yeah.
Have you been on the road yet?
Well, Caitlin's slacking. I've told her she needs to, and she's like, well, she's just trying to get through school here, and then she's going to do all the driver's ed stuff. She hasn't done the permit. She just hasn't even read the book yet or anything like that. So, but I've taken her for a couple of loops in the various parking lots that have lots of space, and that's been an interesting experience. She's, I mean, when you have to teach, I mean, maybe this is a girl's thing, but the first thing is, no, you don't use your left foot to brake. Well, I don't understand why anyone thinks that's an option.
Yeah.
Like she's over that now,
old
but
people do. Old people drive with both
you
feet.
can't, and that's why they crash all the time.
No, it's because they have slower reaction times. So they don't feel confident they can get their right foot over to the brake in time. So they actually end up wearing out their brakes because
they're hitting both at the same time.
Yeah, because they're kind of resting their left foot on the brakes, and they're just kind of like grinding through their
and
brakes.
it just
really
goes right
quickly.
down. Yeah, so you probably see a lot of that. That doesn't make sense to me in my mind. Like it seems very difficult to control. I mean, like if you put your heel on the ground, you just. I mean, you're just doing one of these with your foot. I mean, it's not that difficult.
Like windshield wipering with your toes.
Yeah, but anyway, so.
Yeah, so Rebecca got her permit almost immediately.
So she's been driving around the road? I mean, you've been taking her out?
Not on the road per se. I mean, kind of like in neighborhoods and stuff.
Right.
So.
You terrified, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm surprised how terrified I actually am by this whole thing. I don't.
I mean, is she bad at it? Like, is she
easily.
a slow starter? Like, would you say you're like, wow? Because some people just naturally are going to understand the driving concept.
I kind of feel that she's a bit overconfident.
I wonder where she gets that from, Bret.
Yeah, I'm far less confident in her ability to drive. Considering the few stop signs that we've already blown through, than she seems to be. But she's made it clear she doesn't like driving with me because I make her nervous.
Yeah.
Which, that's fine by me. I want her to be nervous. So I keep trying to get her to favor the brake. Like, as long as you're stopping, there's very little trouble you can get into. The minute you start hitting that gas pedal by accident.
Right. Be a defensive driver. I mean, I'm saying all the things my parents said to me now, like, be a defensive driver. Look out for what the other drivers are doing. I mean, it's sad, but it's true. I mean, it's like
it's almost like they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, it's almost like our parents. Yeah, we should have listened to them. I've not been in any. Look, I stand by my driving record, so I feel like I can boast a little bit. I've not been in any major accidents. The only time I got in an accident was when someone.
I like the caveat. The major accident. What is the qualification for a major accident?
Well, the only things I've been in is a deer ran out in front of my car one time on the highway. I had no possible way I could have seen it coming, and I didn't crash or anything. It just crashed onto my car, and I pulled over, and I was like, oh wow, look at that, totaled the front. So that was one, and then the other one was someone rear-ended me. So I was just sitting at a stoplight, and they just crashed into me. So those are the only 2 times I've been in an accident.
Well,
neither one of them were my fault.
So.
So Tara, my wife, she's had a few little. Over the years, when she was younger, driving into a ditch and things.
I rear-ended
of this
a lady on the way to a funeral, on the way to my buddy's grandmother's funeral, and this lady in front of us was making a left-hand turn and then just stopped in the middle of the road.
Her fault, obviously.
And yeah, I think.
What'd the judge say?
No, there was no judge.
Okay, right.
We just paid for whatever it was. I mean, recently, this would be like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I had all my cars are used cars, of course, but I had this little Chevy Tracker. I was not that far from where I hit the lady when I was a teenager. rear-ended that lady. I didn't hit an old lady. Anyway, and somebody pulled right out and was making an illegal left-hand turn and totaled both of our cars.
Yikes.
I hit her right in the driver's side door. But it was totally blind. Somebody was like letting her out, you know.
Yeah.
She wasn't supposed to be making a left there and hand turn anyway. Just jumped right in front of me and smashed her. So that was her fault. And then not too long after that, I was looking too intently at the GPS heading into Philadelphia. And I guess the traffic started to turn, making left-hand turns. And I started going straight through a red light and ran into somebody.
All right. Well, so then you can't. I mean, so we're talking about obviously our kids now coming of driving age, and yeah, I mean but it is a terrifying prospect, and it is crazy to think that our kids are at that particular phase right now. Yeah, that they're. I mean, the saying is true. The days are long and the years are short, and you know, finding a lot of truth in that statement. So
yeah, I mean, this feels like the first time that I'm really having to let her do something very, very independent.
Yeah.
Dangerous, independent, on her own and out in the world. I guess because of where we live, I kind of keep the birds close to the nest.
Yeah.
Walking around, I don't let them do all that too much.
Oh, you mean just because like the intersection and stuff? Like, do you mean just that, or just like
just because it's so busy around us? So we let them go to the grocery store across the street. They always want to walk to some of their friends' houses. They're like, no, I know this neighborhood. No.
Well, no, and people aren't really, you know, you're coming through it. They're not looking for pedestrians, especially younger ones that maybe aren't tall, you know, and they don't see. So
that I'm not so worried about. I'm just worried about. Because Ben Salem, the crime is just ridiculous in the area now.
That's true. So, it's not like you've not been stabbed or anything like that. So
right, yeah, those things do tend to happen.
They tend to have an impact on how you view the area. Yeah, no, I get that
from time to time.
I get that. Yeah,
yeah. I saw you mentioned my stabbing on.
I did mention. Where did I mention it?
You were talking to Partridge.
Okay. Yes.
Dale, and, yes. So I commented on your YouTube right there that guy, I heard that guy was like really smart and good looking too.
Well, it should send to the link. We have the video on CBN somewhere to your testimony. So
yep,
just drop it in the comments there. Just promote your link. You know, get it in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I definitely will. I'm gonna do that when I get home.
Well, I mean, look, I've mentioned your story a couple times now because of the latest news with the Ma'Khia Bryant thing, and you know, it's just
knife fights are so commonplace. You know, we all have.
Oh, what family? I mean, we're on the topic of families today. What family has not dealt with knife fights within the family? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, honestly, I was looking at that, and you know, obviously, the people trying to minimize saying that the cop should have just waited and told her to put it down. All the things that people are saying are ridiculous. No. You know, I mean, the cop basically pulled a Jack Bauer, in my opinion, and assessed the situation correctly in about 3 seconds, and then made a great shot. I mean, it was tragic that anybody dies.
He didn't hit the other lady.
He didn't hit the other lady, and she was right behind her.
Can you imagine?
I mean, it was him. It was him, the attacker, and then the victim.
And there was a guy trying to kick somebody in the head right next to him.
Right, and then that guy. Yeah, and then that guy acted appalled. He's like, "What are you shooting a kid for? You're stomping on a kid's head."
Wasn't it his daughter?
I don't know if it was his daughter or not, but
anyway. Enough about other people's kids.
Yeah, exactly. But I brought that up though because, you know, you look at family and how important it is, and this even just that situation that was happening. You see it too many times. These, you know, just brawls that are going on, and the adult in the room is kicking someone in the head.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you know that's extreme, but I mean I think it just goes to show the importance of family.
Yeah, and leadership, and just the fact that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You know, your example has consequences, right? So our example to our kids, this guy, I don't know if this guy was the girl's father or not, but his example, that's the consequences, is trying to stab somebody in front of a cop with a gun drawn on them.
Well, yeah. I mean, you just have to think, if you're willing as a parent, I mean, we all have bad moments. I mean, let's not pretend we're all perfect here, but if you're willing to take it so far that you're going to stomp on one of your teenage kids' friends or enemies at school with your foot and kicking a kid in the head. Like, it's just, that's so far gone. It's just, it's not, it's so far,
Yeah.
you've messed up your family.
Yeah.
Just big time at that point.
Yep.
I mean, I feel like I'm messing up my kids when I'm disciplining them out of anger. Right. And that's wrong. Like, I shouldn't do that, because if you badger your kids over and over again and you're just kind of berating them, well, they're going to start to tune out dad, and they're starting not going to listen to dad. And, they're not going to value what I say because they just think I'm a dictator, just chucking down rules for no reason or other. So, how we parent has incredible consequences. And it's just I mean, first of all, a lot of parents just aren't even there. They're not even caring to be involved in their kids' life. They're just fathering and, mothering kids and then just getting out of there and just living in their sin and just pursuing their sin and not their family and what God has called them to do. And so, people are just giving up that responsibility, left and right. And I've been thinking a lot about this lately. Everyone's talking about how do we fix things and social justice, and it's got to be this and that. And honestly, I think having a solid family unit is probably, aside from the gospel itself, I would say the next greatest thing is having a solid family unit. That's gospel centered.
Yeah.
Preferably, but
like
even
guys like Ben Shapiro's always bringing that up about like, if you have a mom and dad in the home.
Yeah. I mean, talk about science.
Stay married, don't go to jail. Like, your chances of succeeding in life are pretty high.
Yeah.
But even in a situation like that, where you have somebody trying to stab probably somebody that was a friend at some point, but it's like the amount of bad decisions, they might even be generational, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just been one bad choice after another, just snowballing. It's just constantly rolling down the hill until you end up here at this point. And who knows? Maybe
I think she was
never going to learn the lesson. I don't know.
Yeah. And now it's coming back to me. I think she was a foster child, I think. So I don't know what the situation was with her initial parents.
Right.
And so, I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe they were, killed in a car accident or something. I have no idea what caused her to be an orphan, basically. But then, so fostering is difficult enough. So, whoever was fostering them, it's an extra burden, extra challenge. And, so there's a lot of brokenness there. And, I think, when we look at all the trouble in the world, I just think that if that's an area we start on, I think you're not going to see a lot of improvement until we improve that first.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think about my own kids, like trying to think of all the ways that I'm probably screwing them up. But still, I mean, even me as an imperfect father making mistakes, if I'm at least displaying that God has grace toward me, that I can ask forgiveness from my own kids for the dumb things that I might do.
Yeah.
Try to model for them some way of resolving conflict in our own family, or just the times that they have conflict with each other, that I can come in and try to show them how to resolve those things, and hopefully, or that they actually do need to be resolved.
Yeah.
Even if I don't do it right.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that I learned from my parents growing up, was that, oh my goodness, we would argue till like 3 a.m. over things, or just hash out. If we had an issue with each other, it wouldn't get settled, or we wouldn't go to bed until that issue got settled. Yeah. It was torture.
Yeah.
But like I got the impression this was important to do in a family, and not just leave everything unsaid and then let bitterness
don't
grow.
let the sun go down on your anger.
Right.
I mean,
right.
And yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, that's really important, is showing our kids that we're sinners in need of grace, just like they're sinners in need of grace. And I think there's a great book that we're actually going through in our small group right now called Parenting by Paul Tripp. And it's just really a great kind of overarching approach to parenting and how we should do it. And I'll just give you the basics, but I would recommend any parent to pick this one up. But he talks about us we're ambassadors for Christ with our kids. We are not the owners of our kids. So he kind of delineates 2 different types of parents: ownership parents, who they think their kids are theirs, and ambassador parents, who are relaying, God's message to them and God's
Right.
truths to them. And then just how those differences play out in just different daily types of interactions and things with our kids. And so that's the first thing. But then the kind of the overarching theme, and he goes through it in a bunch of different ways. But just talking about how our main priority is to teach them about the truth of the universe, and that is that they are sinners and they need Christ's salvation. They need Christ's forgiveness, and if we illuminate that need to them, that's like the best service that we can do to them, that and show them, hey, this is why this is happening, because you're a sinner and you're being selfish, and that's why you're taking all your brother's toys and all these things or whatever else you're doing. And it's not, they're not going to speak, I am a sinner in need of grace. Like they're not going to just get it right away.
I talk about James 4 with my son a lot.
Yeah. And so that's to me, that was sort of eye-opening, because I know that's the gospel. I know I've got to teach them that. But when you look at it as, okay, every single situation that comes up is an opportunity to sort of relay that message to them.
Yeah.
And, because there's a tendency, we're sinners too. So there's a tendency for us to, well, they're my two sons are going at it again. They're arguing about something, or they're being crazy. And it's like, I'm trying to get something done. So how do I take that? Like your first reaction is like, oh gosh, here they go again. Like,
Right.
And I have to stop what I'm doing. I can't read, 2 pages of this book before they start arguing again about something or bickering or whatever. And so then now it's an affront against me. Now they've sinned against me, right? And I'm not.
We've added a third sinner to the equation.
Right. So anyway, so trying to take that situation and go, okay, I have to break up the situation with grace and saying, explaining to them again why this is happening. And of course you can't, there are certain times where if it's too crazy, you just got to separate, whatever the case may be. So anyway, I really recommend that book, because I just think it gives you a good perspective on how we at least should be approaching parenting. It's not like here's 10 steps to fix your kids, and it's nothing like that. It's a basic, here's how you're supposed to approach parenting and your purpose in parenting. So it's been helpful for me in the last, I wish I would have had it 16 years ago.
Yeah, right.
But obviously God's full of grace.
I don't know, 16 years ago, I think I was a much better parent than now. I'm like way busier now than.
Yeah, no, that's true.
One kid was like having a pet.
Yeah.
Got all your attention.
I mean, look, Rebecca and Caitlin, I'm sure Rebecca was not your most challenging growing up.
No.
I mean, Caitlin
She's
very
not
much
my most challenging now, aside from putting me in mortal terror
in the wheel
car all the time.
Yeah. And then so Caitlin is, she was very much, all the kids are different. Everybody with multiple kids knows this. They all have their own quirks. And so Caitlin's very a rule follower. She wants to do well and not, rock the boat. So growing, and then she would just go off and read and do things like,
This is essential. Let's have another one.
I know, right? Yeah, let's have, and then you have two boys close together, and it's great most of the time, of course, but 2 kids within 2 years of each other and they're together all the time, well, they're gonna fight all the time too. So you get a lot more of that than we did with the first, but yeah. Anyway.
So, were you a Christian before you had kids, or was this something that happened later on?
Well, yeah. Yes, I got saved before we had kids. So we got married. Then that's when Tara started she sort of went before me, and she was going to church, and she was, saved, and she was really gung ho, and she was trying to get me to go. And I was like, no. Like, I'm okay. That's a great club you're going to, or whatever. But no, I'm not in. But anyway, so she finally convinced me to go. Then I got saved shortly after that. And that was while we were still living in Florida. This was the early 2000s. And then we moved back up here. And then that's when we had kids up here in 2005. So yeah, I was saved, but I was still pretty early in the sanctification process. We'll call it that.
Right. Yeah.
So definitely understood that I was a sinner, that I needed grace, that Christ died for me. But, it took a while for me to really start. I would say a few years before I really started kind of taking it seriously and seeing areas of sin in my life that, had to be dealt with. And that I was, okay, I'm just not really taking this serious. I'm just sort of
Right.
you know, got my hell insurance. Like that was kind of the vibe.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't that bad, but I was just sort of living not like I understood that these were sins that, you know, mattered, you know, now that I'm a Christian. So anyway, so yeah, it was early in the
One thing I would
process there for me.
say, you know, in the context for young guys that are like still single and still like wondering what their life's going to be like, especially if they're a Christian, that getting married and having kids brings out like a whole new scope of sinfulness in your life.
It's like a sin alert. Like, oh my gosh, here's all these sins you didn't think you had.
Yeah. Like selfishness and pride and just dealing with anger and like, how are you hurting people that you love? Things like that. But God is really using things like marriage and having kids as like a way to sanctify us and to expose us. But you know, without those things, I wouldn't be nearly as far along in my walk. I mean, as a kid, having grown up in the church, it feels like my whole life has just been nothing but sanctification and discipline of the Lord on me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think having kids really gives you a good, not a perfect, but sort of an image of, you know, God's relationship to us. Right. Yeah. So you really start to, it's obviously not the exact same, but you can, because people say like, oh, you're going to love having kids. And people who don't have kids, they think they're, well, yeah, I know I like kids, blah, blah, blah. I kind of like kids, but it's different when it's your kid.
Right.
Like, and people always say it. They go, oh my gosh. Like, it's like, I figured I'd like kids, but it's like, you can't understand, you know, your capacity to love something or someone until you have a kid.
Yep.
And so then I think that kind of helps us relate to, you know, how God views us a little bit.
It's like that selfless love.
Yeah.
That's a difficult thing to understand for a selfish guy, a single guy.
Yeah.
To me, I know it was hard for me. I remember somebody was discipling me when I was probably 18 or 19, and then talking about that I should think about God's love toward me. And I was like, I can't even think about how God could love me. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why anybody would bother to love me, you know? It just seemed like getting married was so far out of my grasp that I couldn't even imagine that even a woman would love me, let alone whether God would love me or not. Like, that just seemed unfathomable.
Yeah.
Why would a holy God love me?
Yeah. And I think, for anybody who happens to be watching this and is single, I mean, I'm not going to tell you what you got to do, obviously. I mean, but people who think like, well, I've got the gift of singleness, and it's like,
no, you don't.
You know, maybe, but the odds are pretty slim, right? Yeah. And I mean, even just thinking about it, just from a practicality standpoint with sexual sin, like, okay, good luck with that. You know, good luck with your effort to remain, you know, to be pure.
Sin would have to be so far off the realm of possibility for you. That would be your first clue as to whether or not you had the gift of singleness or not.
Yeah.
That you just didn't feel like the desire, the urge to even
to
even go there.
Right.
And then you might think, well, maybe I have the gift of singleness. It's like if you don't have that under control, like, give that up. You better get married.
Yeah.
And start thinking about that now.
Yeah.
And working on it. One thing that always blows me away in popular media, you ever watch like rom-coms and stuff, and everybody's saying like, just be yourself. That's how you'll find your one true love. Like, dumb advice.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And you know, it's so funny because you look at how, like you said, popular media, how they portray just relationships. It's very much like, oh, they have so much in common, and the walks on the beach, and he's a romantic, and she, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, the only thing you need for a good marriage is for both of you to love the Lord. I'm fully convinced of that now. That you know, all this going through all this rigmarole. I don't know if we're going to be compatible for like. All you have to know is, does this person love the Lord as much as I do?
Right.
And you'll be fine then after that. Honestly, like, you know,
forgiveness and grace I mean, love covering a multitude of sins. All those things are incredibly important.
Yeah.
Just to have any kind of relationship. That's
Yeah.
why like Christian relationships
Yeah.
are so awesome to have, because you're both sinful people. You're going to offend each other, but the fact that we can give each other grace, it's much easier to get along with another believer than to constantly be on your toes with somebody that thinks they're just going to like cut you out of their life, for the
Right.
slightest offense.
Right.
But in a marriage, think of all the ways we can offend each other. I can't even imagine trying to do that as a non-Christian, as a non-believer, or even without like the help of other Christians as well, like or like church leadership or just counselors and pastors. And if you had a huge problem, it's like, well, let's go talk to the pastor. Like, let's go talk to an elder. Not having that, I've talked to other guys that aren't believers. They're thinking about getting married, and I almost want someone's like, don't. like, you're just jumping into something that's going to be unbelievably difficult. And the minute this person decides that you're the worst person on earth, say goodbye to half your income.
Yeah.
And say goodbye to your kids half the time or less.
Yeah. Well, because you're right. I mean, if you think about, like you said, all the chances you have to offend somebody, to hurt someone, we're all human beings, as we've been saying. Like, we're sinners in need of grace. But what do sinners do? If I haven't let you down yet, just give me some time. I'm sure I'll do it at some point, not on purpose, but we just do it. Like, we're fallible. We mess up, and and then you think of all the times that's happening in a relationship, and if you don't have Christ, if you don't put that first, what motivation? You're going to find an out at some point, right? Like, we're just not. I'm always shaking my head at, and Christians do it too. They're not immune to this, but they well, we just had irreconcilable differences, and so that's how the relationship breaks up. And it's like, people are buying into that stuff now, and it's like, guys, no, like from a Christian perspective, like, you've got to be able to just say, like, okay, like, God brought this together. Let's not tear it apart. It might be hard. It might be.
They say that at weddings too.
Yeah, they may say that at weddings, and then people just all forget it. And so I'm not saying it's easy, but if you have that common thread and then that, common purpose in your marriage, it makes all the difference. And like you said, like, you get married because, The Bachelor, which honestly, Christians, if you're watching The Bachelor, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Give it up.
I've never understood this, how anyone doesn't see this as other than just like a
It's
fame,
not the dating game.
It's a fame. It's a fame grabbing opportunity. That's all it is. But I mean, I don't follow it too closely. I just see it pop up in the news every now and then. And I'm amazed that people watch it. I've heard multiple people that I know are Christians that say they watch the show, and I'm just like, I don't know. It seems to me the exact opposite of how, they're like, oh, look at this. Like, they put them on these exotic dates. And, I think actually, on our website, we were reporting on it because they were professing to be Christian, but the one woman was saying she was a Christian, but yet she's sleeping around with all the contestants on the show, multiple people. And you're just like, and then they try to use the Bible to justify this. And you're just like, no, okay. But anyway, so,
probably not the best way to go about pursuing a family.
No.
In a God-honoring way.
No.
By being on a national television show.
On a show that's based all on, beauty, physical beauty and, appearances and, drama and all, all that nonsense. So, no, I mean, they should have Christian Bachelor. That would be a ratings grabber, right?
They're holding hands.
But it's true though. I mean, but if that's the thing that you focus on,
they're all wearing floor length skirts, denim skirts.
Just super modest. They go on a date. A date is just like, what, a tractor ride or something. I don't know. And just.
That's not even Christian Bachelor. That's like hillbilly Bachelor.
That's hillbilly. It's hillbilly. I was just thinking Southern culture. They're out on a farm or something,
Bible Belt Bachelor.
But
bless your heart.
Yeah, But I mean, I forget how we started on that road, but when you're looking at just kind of as a single person, when you're trying to, pursue a mate, I think all the world's ideas are just terrible.
Oh yeah.
And you don't need any of the things that they suggest. And I think so many people buy into that, and they sit there single for half their lives, and they're wasting away waiting for that perfect person.
I feel so terrible for a lot of people, like a lot of young people right now. From what I hear, it is just an absolute nightmare trying to find somebody to marry. Like so many people have just damaged themselves in the world and made themselves almost like unmarriable. Like, let's say you were somebody like waiting for marriage, like you're a virgin and you're doing all the things that you think you should be doing to prepare for marriage and being a father, and now your bar is like real high. You're looking for a woman who's kind of done some of the same things and taken the same kind of care with your life that you have. But so many people are just like indulging in this internet culture of like fast, easy relationships and hooking up online and stuff. I sound like an old man, but it's almost like colliding into people by accident when I was in my 20s. It was like a far easier and more stable way of meeting people.
Right. Than on the internet now. Yeah. And like, it's not, I would say, it's not that, I mean, we're all going to have some brokenness in our past, right? And so, it's not like you have to have a clean record to marry somebody, but at the same time, there's, you're just making it more difficult. You're putting a lot of brokenness into your life, and things of that nature. And I'd be interested to hear your take on this, but we had Doug Wilson do that e-course with us, Set Free. We did a while back. And, in one of his sessions, he talked about getting married younger.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
I know he's gotten grief for this online, saying like, oh, that is telling people to get married young. That's disgusting. And it's like, but if you think about it, his perspective was this, and I thought this made a lot of sense, which was, okay, you think about the number of people that are exposed to porn at an earlier and earlier age. So you're talking teenagers, 12, 13, 14 years old. They're exposed to pornography. And to your point, damaging themselves that way, making it more difficult to see
Strange
women in the right light, but then they're getting married later. So now they're getting married in their late 20s. So now you have someone who from age 13, 14, 15, all the way up to 28, 29, 30, who's been either sexually active or sinning or just had a warped view of women. And then now they're trying to get into marriage at 30 after spending half their life, and then the early half even was just when they're kids. So they were probably even thinking about this stuff. So really, they're a whole life of actually thinking about women. And I'm obviously, talking to men here mostly, but how you view them.
It's called Gird Your Loins.
Yeah. So good point. I forgot the name of the podcast there. So, but anyway, so you think of the damage that's been done for that life, and then they're jumping into marriage. How's that going to go? So, so his point was, hey, get married younger,
I'm a big proponent of that. And it used to drive me crazy to see two people that wanted to get married
and wait
and
for
it's like,
years.
Wait.
Like, what are you waiting for?
We're engaged. Like, when's the engagement? And they go, well, we haven't set the date yet. It's like, well, you guys have been engaged for a month. Like, you haven't figured that out yet? And then they do, and it's like 2 years down the road. It's like, what are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for? We want to travel the world. Well, first of all, usually most people, it's backwards. They don't have any money at that point. When
I've heard of people that I know that have gotten married in secret because they might lose their insurance. They might come out of their parents' insurance at that point when they get married. So churches will marry people kind of in secret from the government. Say you're married as far as we're concerned, and then later on it's like get it done, get the paperwork
get
done,
the state,
and then, now you're off your parents' insurance at that point. But even then, it's like, is that really what's like the money is what's holding you back?
Right?
Like,
No, it shouldn't. I mean, look, you should trust God. Like,
I can see if it's definitely like, hey, we're really going to be suffering because of this. If we don't do it this way, I get that. But for a lot of people, it's like, oh, we're in college. We're going to wait to finish school.
No.
Go to
For
school
what?
for what? Like,
Well,
what?
I'll give you one. I mean, you just don't know what tomorrow brings. And good friends of ours, they lost their son to cancer, and he was only 21 years old.
Ugh.
But he had just gotten married 6 months before that. So he had gotten married a couple months before he found
Right.
out that he had cancer. And I think, wow, like what a blessing that they got married
Yeah.
and had that time to spend together as
Absolutely.
husband and wife, even though it was only for a few months.
Oh, it's sad.
And
Wow.
yeah, it's been tough, but to see that family's faith through all this has been a blessing and a positive in that tragic situation. That's been obviously hard on everyone. But to the point, like, what if they would have waited, and then now all of a sudden he's sick,
Yeah.
and then you don't know what's going to happen, so why wait? And we have other friends who I don't know when they got married, but I think it was their late teenage years maybe, and they have like 4 kids now, and they're still barely 30. And let me tell you, I'm 46 now, and I have a 5-year-old, and so I was, I guess, 41 when he was born, and yeah, it doesn't get any easier when you're older. I mean, like, I love parenting him. I'm just saying, like, the diapers and all that other stuff that grind when you're. Because everyone's like, "Well, wait to have kids." I'm like, some things you just don't think about.
Yeah.
You don't think about when you're 46, you're going to be tired.
Yes. Much
You're
more tired.
You're going to be tired. Your body's going to ache.
Things are gonna hurt.
Things are going to hurt.
Most people tell me that they'll look at me and they're like, "Well, you're still young." I'm like, "I'm 41 years old. I'm not young anymore. This could be it. I could be well over the hill. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna live."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I could be in my home stretch here. I have no
I might only have a
idea.
few years left.
I have no idea. And by the way, if you're ever playing a pickup basketball game with me, don't make me guard the 18-year-old kid who's in shape. I don't. Look, I'm bald. I'm pretty much bald. I don't know why this happens to me every time. I am 6'2", 6'3", so I'm a decent basketball player when I'm in shape, but I'm not in shape. But every time I randomly get in a pickup game, they'll say, "You guard this guy," and I'm like, "What? No, I'm not. I'm past my time when I have to guard the 18-year-old kid. Don't make me do it. I'm old."
Dan's being humble. He's quite the athlete.
I was back in the day somewhat respectable, but
Dan used to play in my flag football league, and he would always get drafted way high.
which was even then, because I was in my late 30s then, I think. And even then, that was suspect. You guys had some suspect drafts. I'm not sure I understand. You had like
suspect referees. Every pass interference, you'd be like, "What? Where's the flag?"
No, well, that's just standard. You got to complain. Any athlete complains on every call.
There was literally one referee. It was me, and I wasn't looking at you that time.
Oh man.
Oh my goodness. Well, we could probably wrap this up. What closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think we were kind of going on different things there, but I think one of the things I did want to bring up was just why would we have families, right? I know that's one of the things you'd mentioned to me and we wanted to talk about it. And I do think, aside from, I think that's what God calls us to do. So that's obviously reason number one to do it. I just think you look at society today, and we talked about that tragic story with the stabbing and stuff, but and how family is a solution to that. But I also think, just not from just extreme circumstances like that, but just from the day to day, the beliefs of culture and where it's going right now, and the things that they're believing, like these eco warriors trying to scare us into the climate dying in 12 years, and critical race theory and all these things that they're pushing, and and just the indoctrination that's in schools right now. I really do think that it's, and again, they're not having as many kids. The people that believe these sorts of things, they're afraid to have kids. So they either have no kids or one kid. So, just for the sanity of the world, I think it's probably, hey, if there's something you can do, which will be a great blessing for you and something God already wants you to do,
right?
Have some more kids.
One thing I've always said,
and train them up well.
Good people don't have enough kids. They just don't. It seems in a lot of places, some of the worst people just seem to propagate children all over the place, and then they're just a plague on society.
Yeah, well, because it's like you just train them up, or you just have a bunch of kids and just let them just get raised in the streets and just hope for the best. And so, aside from God's,
so it's like if you're dissatisfied with the way that the world is right now, then the best thing that you could do in the long run is have a bunch of kids and raise them up right to fear the Lord. And then, you know, whether you're a post-millennialist or not, it's still good advice. It's still commanded by God. You know, go have some kids, raise them up right to fear the Lord, and watch the world change around you, because those are soldiers. Those are arrows in our quiver, right?
Yeah. And I would say, like, when you're saying raise them up right, I mean, I think you got to take that seriously. I think even I know there are so many ways the culture can just take over. And like, you look at what the culture's doing, secular culture, and they want to have pre-K now. They want to have all that. Like, they're trying so hard to get a hold of your kids.
More influence.
More and more influence. We want to take them over and more control of the state. The state's kind of, trying to put their influence on it and their views on things. And it's not just like a bias anymore, like we were saying before. It's full out activism at this point.
And indoctrination.
So, and I realize, not everybody can homeschool, not everybody wants to homeschool, but, or private school. If your kids if you have to do the public school thing, or that's the route you're going, like, I would just say, like, make sure you're that much more intentional at home, right? Because your kids are going to need help if they're in that environment on a day-to-day basis. It's just it's very difficult to put them in that and then expect them to just be the light, for everybody else there. So, I mean, I know there's no blanket solution there. I just think when you say take it seriously, I think, or raise them up, I think that's something we really have to be extra intentional about, because the world makes it easy for us to just eject ourselves from that and let all the other influences take over instead of mom and dad.
Right.
So,
Well, one thing, since I'm trying to mimic the Joe Rogan podcast here a little bit, we need to talk about cars. So I understand that you drive a Honda Civic. Like, what's that like?
Well, no, I drive. Well, I had a Honda Civic back in the day, and I sold that one to our friend Bob Newbaum, and I think Jacob Newbaum had it for a while until it got into an accident, and that thing is dearly departed now. I have got a Hyundai Sonata.
Wow,
that is 2009, I think it is. So
is that 0 to 60? What's that? Like 3 minutes?
Sometimes. It's sometimes 0 to 60. Sometimes it gets there. No, it's, I actually like it. I mean, I think I may have told you this story, but I actually bought it from, oh gosh, what's the place where you can, oh my goodness, the No Haggle place. It's over there in Oxford Valley by Panera Bread. CarMax. I'm a big proponent of CarMax, so I've had good experiences there. But anyway, I got a Nissan Maxima there, which I'm a big Nissan guy. I love Nissans. And the Maxima at the time was like the car I loved. And I got it and it was great. And then I was feeling guilty because I was like, I went a little over the budget I wanted to go over. And they actually have a policy where you can take it back.
Oh, wow.
So 2 days later, I took the thing back, changed it out for the good old Hyundai.
Took it back and got a Tesla. Amazing.
And the Tesla, no. But I saved 50% of what I spent. So I got something half the price just about. So... so a little frugality there, but so the good old Hyundai, it works. It gets me from A to B. It's not bad.
Good family man vehicle. There.
A good grocery getter.
Minivans are in your future, young guys.
We got one of those too.
Don't turn your nose up at it.
No, my wife wants another one, by the way. Ours is
another minivan.
Well, because this one's you've seen ours. Yeah, it's it's probably...
It's got that door that hangs open from time to time, like you're in a Huey.
Yeah.
Gunning down villagers.
See, and the kids think it's fun. They're like, "Oh, Dad, go with it open." And Tara's like, "No, don't go with it open." I'm like, "No, but look, guys, you can shoot everything outside it." And they're like, "Yeah," So it can be fun.
Awesome. Well, this was fun, Dan. Thanks for helping me out doing this, and this was a great experience for me. And we'll have to do it again too. Maybe we'll do it with Tyler.
Yeah, we gotta hear Tyler's story. I mean, he's got a couple kids now, and he's he's new into that realm. So war stories from a young parent.
Cool. All right, let's see what happens when I hit this outro button.
All right, do it.
Maybe it'll actually do it. Oh yeah, it's doing it. It's fading out. Bye, everybody.